This is literally the simplest way to kill your belly fat cells for good in a few simple steps that absolutely everybody can do. I know this because I've applied this with each and every single one of the clients that I've coached over the last 10 years, thousands of them at this point. And this has functioned as the foundation of my own transformation. Out of the 5 transformations, this played the fundamental role in helping me go from 30% body fat to single digit if you desire. And this has worked for all of my clients. Look at Harry, 100 pounds gone. And he was ready to give up until he made this the foundation of his transformation. Dr. Ruth losing her baby weight. Dr. Adrian, who's a busy person in his dental clinic. Look at Doug. Look at Dwayne at 80 years young. He could not see his six-pack until he implemented this. Avalon's, Tori, Sandra, the list is endless of all the thousands of clients, and I'm gonna give it to you here very simply. You may know some of this information, you may have heard it, but the issue is the strategy and the implementation. I know this because I'm a medical doctor, I'm a scientist, it's grounded and embedded with science, but we need to turn it into a simple thing that you can do each and every single day that will finally allow you to release that fat for good. Let's not waste any time and dive straight into the first simple step. What if your body had a switch of storing fat and losing it? And this switch exists. And this is an oversimplification, but that's simply what you need. It's called being in a fed state and a fasted state. When you eat, you're in a fed state, and when you're not eating, you're in a fasted state. And it's a seesaw. I'm sure you've heard the calories in, calories out, count your calories, track points, and this can be extremely daunting. But what if we could manipulate this switch to our own desire and our own will? And this is where I introduce to you time-restricted feeding, or intermittent fasting. It is restricting the number of calories you consume in a day just by time. And this way you don't have to stress about the weighing of the food and what exactly, and we'll talk about that later. But the simplest way, and I'm showing you a graph here. This graph shows when you're eating, you're storing the food, right? And this switch is more so designed by insulin. Insulin's main function is storage, taking the nutrients you're putting in your body and putting them in the appropriate cells like your muscle and your brain, because you need these foods. But when you have too much of these foods, what does your body do? You store them. And when insulin is low and down, you can then lose fat. You're now switching off, and now your body utilizes all the nutrients, and when it doesn't have enough, it will go for fat cells. And the simplest way to do this is through intermittent fasting, but most people are doing it wrong. Here, I'm gonna show you these 3 cups to describe fasting. Now, I'm sure you've heard when individuals are severely obese, they'll undergo a surgery called bariatric surgery. There's different procedures. One is called a sleeve bariatric surgery. So basically they cut a piece of your stomach and make your stomach smaller so you consume less calories, or they include a lap band. They put a band around your stomach so that you can consume less calories. But without getting too complicated, what if you could do that with time? Imagine this is your stomach right now. Right, you're eating the entire day, you're not limiting when you eat and what time you eat. And when you fill up this cup, which is the size of your stomach, you're storing that fat. But what if I simply just told you, hey, I want you to stop eating at 8 p.m. and I want you to start eating again at 8 a.m. This would force you to only be able to eat in a 12-hour window, consequently reducing the size of the stomach and the amount of calories you put into your stomach. And this is fundamentally the way that I have been able to lose the weight. I gain weight easily. I can also build muscle easily. And I could not do this without intermittent fasting. So what I recommend for those who have tried it is implementing a thing called progressive fasting. This balloon here represents your stomach, and the fluid inside is the calories consuming on an empty stomach, right? This is what your stomach looks like. That's 2.5 fluid ounces. On the complete opposite spectrum, this is about 35 fluid ounces, and this is your stomach full. Here is what I call progressive fasting, and it just shows the volume of stomach depending on how many hours you've been fasting. So right now what happens with people is that they'll start fasting, they'll hear, okay, do the 16-8, and usually people will restrict themselves to 2 meals, and those 2 meals will range between 1,000 to 1,500 calories max in those 2 meals. and you would have probably seen some sort of success. But what happens is if you're eating between 1200 and 1500, over time your body goes through a thing called metabolic adaptation. Your body adapts to the calories you eat. Your body's the most intelligent system. And then you decrease your calories more, and then you get to a position where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place and you still have a lot of weight to lose. What you need is a more staircase manner, a more progressive strategic manner. And this is where I introduce progressive fasting. So this is what I want you to do, and what I did with Harry and all of my clients.
We start off with a classic 12-12. I want you to do this in week 1. Just fast for 12 hours and eat within a 12-hour window period. And you can see that the size already from eating with a full stomach to only eating for 12 hours is already considerably less. And just doing this can help you establish a caloric deficit. For certainty, you want to track everything, but this is the simplest mechanical way, is just setting yourself a rule with restricting your eating through time.
Basically, your first meal is breakfast at 8 a.m. and your last meal is at 8 p.m. This way, we can limit the total calories you're consuming in a day. And after 8 p.m., you're not gonna eat extra 500 calories from snacking, having a bite of your partner's meal. You just simply say, I'm not eating anymore. And from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m., you will then transition from being in this fed state to a fasted state for 12 hours. Insulin will decrease and your body will utilize the fat tissue, the fat cells, as an energy source. And usually for the clients that I work with, this is in that 2,700 to 2,800 calorie mark. And then again, this ranges depending on your gender, age, how tall you are, your current weight. So this is a generalization, but this is level 1. I put them in a 12-12 fasting window, and this way they have more control and they're not overeating. We'll talk about what you eat later, but when you eat is also important. And I'll talk about all the beautiful benefits that really turned me into a superhuman, and like literally how I built this million subscriber channel, and became a doctor at the same time, and a pro bodybuilder. After you adopt this 12-12, let's say you do this on month 1, you just started, you finished watching this video, you should see some progress.
Now, moving forward in this balloon here, the water has been filled for 10 seconds. So it's 14 hours of fasting and a 10-hour eating window.
And basically, what you're doing in this case is you're decreasing the window when you can eat, and you're only eating in 10 hours instead of 12. And that simply is moving your breakfast from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And you'll start noticing like, oh wow, I feel a lot fuller actually. I'm not that hungry. And this is why we want to do this progressively, because you also allow your body to adapt to this new system. You're not crashing it down, you're making it progressive, and you're causing a deficit through time. And then in month 3, you can go from a 14-10 to the classic 16-8.
Fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window period. After that, you guessed it, fast for 18 hours and eat in a 6-hour window period. And then I do this. I fast for 20 hours and eat in a 4-hour window period. And when you do this system here, the progressive fasting, you establish a deeper deficit.
Immediately, you're reducing the stomach size because you can't eat that much because of time. So you're even fasting when you're sleeping because you're not eating in that time. So of course, you can track your calories if you want, but usually you will also just limit the total calories you can eat, and you can bypass all the hunger signals and all the downsides, the side effects of dieting by just restricting time. But 16-8 is when I'm roughly at that 2,200 calorie mark. And then as I progress in my dieting phase, I will then go from a 16-8 to an 18-6. So basically, when you're at 16-8, you're skipping breakfast. That's the big decision you're making. Say, okay, I'm skipping breakfast. And in my experience, this is already where some of the benefits start kicking in with 16-8. My mental clarity and my performance is so much better. In the hospital, I was extremely sharp and I was extremely productive skipping breakfast. And it allowed me to do so much more in the morning. And I see this with all of my clients. They're like, Mike, I'm actually so much better at work skipping breakfast in the morning. I don't have to worry about preparing breakfast. I don't feel tired or sluggish, or I don't feel sleepy. And there's also a scientific explanation for this. The more you fast, the more your body produces this thing called BDNF, called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And what this basically does is that it produces more synapses in the brain. Your brain starts to function quicker. It improves memory. It improves mental clarity. And this is exactly what I felt. So I could do so much more in my fasted states compared to everyone else who was having breakfast, spending time eating their breakfast. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with having a breakfast, but for most people, this functions beautifully. And not only that, research has shown that it reduces inflammation. There's a decrease in C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker. You give your gut, your intestinal system, a break. If you're eating too much, it's not good for you. You need to give the organs in your body a break, an ability to also recalibrate and fix itself. Imagine your microvilli, right, which is in your small intestines and in different parts in your body. And these tentacles, they're tentacles, and picture this as the passage, their main function is absorbing nutrients, right? Now, if you're putting nutrients and food down at all the time, these tentacles inflame, consequently reducing its ability to efficiently absorb all the nutrients that you're eating. But when you reduce the amount of food and the time that you're always putting food through it, it allows it to recover and also absorb more efficiently. And the same applies also with insulin. If your insulin levels are too high all the time because you're eating, what happens is that you develop a thing called insulin resistance. Insulin gets tired. And again, I'm oversimplifying it. But when you fast, you allow your body to become more insulin sensitive. The moment you eat, insulin functions and it puts it into the muscle tissue or whichever organ it needs to. And I always do tell my clients this, hey, when you start fasting, you will feel hungry in the first 3 days. You will be like, hey, I feel hungry. And the reason for this is ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone expressed by the stomach. That feeling, that pain you feel in your stomach when you're hungry, that signal, it's a signal your brain is sending to feed. And research will show that ghrelin has a spike at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and again at 8 p.m., which is usually breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because you've been sending your body the signal all the time that, hey, you will eat in the morning, you'll eat in the middle of the day, and you'll eat in the evening. But what you'll notice is that after 3 days, when you don't give your body this response to your ghrelin signal, it'll stop producing ghrelin in the morning. You'll just notice that, hey, actually, I don't feel hungry anymore. And that's why you need to give it a few more days to adapt to the fasting. And this is how people actually manage to fast for 24 hours, for 36 hours, for 48, and even 72 hours. You just ignore the ghrelin signal. So yes, it does suck for a little bit, but your body reduces this expression. This will help you reduce the amount of calories you're eating, consequently reducing the amount of fat gaining and even your body tapping into the fat stores as a source of energy. Now, again, this is an oversimplification, but the simplest thing and the easiest thing is just to limit your calories by eating. But for those people who are intimidated, who are just saying, you know what, this is so hard already, I just want to see some progress, let me take a few steps forward, this is the way to go. Before I move on into the second simple step, comment down below and let us know, has intermittent fasting worked for you? And share your story, because you'll hear people argue against and say it doesn't work. Like, let me know in the comments, has intermittent fasting worked for you or hasn't it? That will inspire people and tell people, hey, does it work or doesn't it? It will give them real factual information outside of just me. So let me know in the comments, hey, Dr. Mike, intermittent fasting worked for me and how? Which one you did? Did you do 16-8? Did you do 18-10? 18-6, excuse me? Like, let us know in the comments. And leave this video with a like, because at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a training plan to follow and a nutrition plan to follow, following all the things I've just talked about. In the description, you don't need to put your email or anything. That's just as a thank you for supporting me. All I ask is leave the video the gentle thumbs up. Let's move on into the next step. Step number 2. Now I've told you when to eat. I'm gonna tell you what to eat, and I'm gonna keep it literally simple. I'm sure you've heard of macronutrients, right? Protein, carbs, fats, and the one people don't talk about is alcohol. But the only one I want to talk about is protein. And in my personal opinion, it is the most important macro. You need this because, again, we don't want to lose weight. What we want to do is lose fat. And this simple step number 2 will make sure that we're losing more fat than we're losing muscle tissue or anything else. Protein is also called in Greek. It's broken down into Greek and described as of the first order. So what I want you to do, and what you've heard, is eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Why protein is so important? On the calories in versus calories out part about reducing your calories, It is very hard to overeat chicken breast. You've never heard someone say, I got fat eating chicken breast, or I got fat eating too much steak and steak only, or I got fat eating too much turkey. Because protein is very filling. It's satiating. It will make you feel full. So in my experience, when you're eating about 1 gram of protein per pound, that automatically will also decrease the amount of calories you eat because protein is very filling. The second thing why protein is why I'm emphasizing it so much more is that when protein's broken down, it's broken down into amino acids. And these amino acids, especially leucine, will drive your body into a state of protein synthesis instead of protein breakdown. So you'll be building more muscle versus breaking it down, right? This is why protein is so important to consume as well. So the other reason is, compared to carbs and fats, protein is actually harder for your body to break down. If you think about it, if you chew a steak a lot longer than it is to chew rice, for example, and your stomach breaking it down and the rest of your digestive system breaking protein down takes a lot more work. And because it takes so much more work, your body actually burns more calories breaking down protein. And this is why a few of the reasons why protein boosts your metabolism, because your body will burn more calories breaking protein down. And in science, this is called your thermic effect of food. It's the amount of calories required to break down protein. And it's so much higher compared to carbs and fats, almost 6 times more. So eating more protein will actually boost your metabolism. And then finally, why protein is so amazing is that it will be the building blocks to actually build muscle. So how to make this so simple for you? So if you're 200 pounds, you want to eat 200 grams of protein. And if you just think about it, okay, cool. If you're going to have 4 meals, breakfast, a snack, lunch, and dinner, each of those meals, you need to eat 50 grams of protein. So without counting calories, I'm going to give you guys a cheat sheet. And just remember this forever. It's called 2-6-8-10. So remember this, 2 scoops of any whey protein is usually 50 grams of protein. Between 40 and 50, but it's 50 grams of protein. If you buy a good protein, it's 50 grams of protein. So for breakfast, you just need to have any meal with 2 scoops of protein. You can have that as a shake. You can put that in your oats. This next one is chicken breast. 6 ounces of cooked chicken breast is equivalent to 50 grams of protein. And all you need to remember is like, okay, I just need to eat a 6-ounce chicken breast. And when you have this chicken breast is whenever, but 6 ounces is what you need. You can have it in lunch, and you can have this maybe in a chicken wrap. You can just eat the chicken breast with veggies if you want for lunch, or you can do chicken breast and rice, whatever you want to mix your chicken breast with. The 8 in 2-6-8-10 is 8 ounces of cooked steak. You want to go for sirloin, you want to go for the lean steaks, right? That doesn't have too much fat. And you can have steak for dinner. You can have maybe steak and baked potatoes. You can have steak and rice. You can have steak with any food, steak and veggies. Let's say you decide steak and veggies, but you need 8 ounces. That's going to give you another 50 grams. And then finally, you need the 10 part, right? Which is white fish. You can use mahi-mahi, cod, any white fish. And 10 ounces of any white fish will give you 50 grams of protein. Now I've just given you 4 sources of 50 grams of protein. And depending on what your weight is, let's say you're 150 pounds, then you just need 150 grams of protein. So instead of 4 meals, you can have 3. And you can just play around with it. So let's say you're 175 pounds. You can say, okay, cool, I'll have 3 meals, right? 50, 50, 50. I'll have half of a 4th meal. Let's say I'll only have 1 scoop of protein. So instead of 50, I'll have 25. Simple. That's it. And all I want you to do is focus on your protein intake and just have those 4 foods. So easy. Even when I was at the Formula One, I was eating these chicken breasts that they just sold in a packet at 7-Eleven. So easy. And protein is the first thing that I want you to focus on. Yes. Do we want to track calories? Do we want to track carbs? Do we want to be able to track fats? Absolutely. That will speed up your progress. But if you just focus on eating that 1 gram, you'll see amazing results. And in my case, with a lot of clients, sometimes I'll even go as high as 1.3 grams per pound of body weight. So maybe my 200-pound client, maybe I'll even give them 260 grams so that they can take advantage of all those other benefits I mentioned when it came to protein. If you do this right, you should get into the teens in terms of body fat. And as you see progress, what I notice with my clients is they become so much more motivated. If you see your shirts are looking a lot better or getting more compliments, you start going to the gym more. And that's the purpose of this video. And now just quickly, if you want a guaranteed result and you want to work with me and my team of medical doctors, fill out the application in the first link in the description if you need it. But you can just follow these steps in the advice I'm going to give you. Moving on into step number 3. In my personal opinion, the more I've coached, the more I've realized this is the biggest thing that's causing people to gain weight and struggling to lose weight, and that's sleep. Now, before you decide, man, I've heard this a lot, I want you to think of it this way. You can drive a car, but if you haven't taken it to service or you didn't let it go to service long enough, the car won't function as well. And that's exactly what sleep is. Sleep is the pit stop. Sleep is where you're going in for service. Sleep is when you're fixing things. And when you don't sleep enough, all the terrible things happen. Think about it. When you're not sleeping enough, you don't feel great. You're tired, you're grumpy, you're not your best self. And research actually confirms everything I'm about to say to you. When you sleep less than 7 hours, you don't feel as great and you actually have a higher desire for highly palatable foods. These foods that are very savory and sweet. So you end up eating more fatty foods, more saltier foods, more sugary foods. And I find this correlation with everybody who's ever spoken to me. So I've spoken to 10,000 people who've wanted to work with me, and there's thousands that I've coached. And the first thing I always see that their sleep is poor. And what happens is that the people sleeping less are making poor food choices. There's a direct correlation. You end up eating more foods that are sugary and fatty over time. You end up going out more and eating out more because you're sleeping less, and it's directly correlated. Research also shows your muscle building hormone, testosterone, produces less because you're not sleeping enough. Research also shows growth hormone is not produced enough. Research also shows insulin doesn't function well because you're not sleeping enough. You store more fat. When you sleep less, you produce more cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol is the exact opposite of testosterone. Cortisol will actually store fat. So, to be able to fix that, I have seen and have coached people just on their sleep. I didn't focus on the data or anything. I just helped them go from 4 hours or 5 hours of sleep, 6 hours on average, and I got them to 7 hours. And they felt less hungry. They actually said, you know what, I don't feel like having fries or chips, or I don't feel like eating out. I actually want to eat something healthy. Or hey, like I feel better. And they made better choices. So I'm going to show you exactly the best way to improve your sleep. The best thing you can first do is you need to see yourself as a professional sleeper. You need to see yourself as someone who values sleep. So this is what we do. It's called 10-3-2-1. So the first thing I see hurts people from sleeping good or sleeping at the right time is their caffeine. So with 10-3-2-1, 10 hours is focused on caffeine. 10 hours before you go to bed, you want to stop drinking coffee because coffee keeps you awake. And you want to remove the concentration of caffeine in your bloodstream, and 10 hours is the number without getting too nitty-gritty in the science. So example, if you want to go to bed by 10 p.m., we want to stop drinking coffee at midday. Let's say you want to go to bed at 9, you want to stop drinking coffee at 11. I know for me, a hard cutoff of coffee, pre-workouts, anything with caffeine is 12 o'clock. So that by 10 o'clock, I'm feeling sleepy, I'm ready to go to bed. My brain doesn't even function. So that's 10 and 10-3-2-1. No more caffeine. The 3 in 10-3-2-1 is regards to food. You want to stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. Why? When you eat, although you've stopped chewing, your stomach, your small intestine, large intestine, all your organs of the alimentary canal, your digestive tract is still functioning. Blood flow is increasing because your body needs to utilize all the food you've put in. And you don't want to do that before you go to sleep. It'll be hard because you're digesting. So 3 hours before bed gives us enough time to stop this entire process and for your body to be in a rested state. So if you want to go to bed at 10 p.m., at 7 p.m. you need to stop eating. Now again, this is an oversimplification. With a lot of our clients, we'll shift this number. Maybe we'll realize that they still struggle. We'll say, hey, let's actually turn it to 4 hours before bed. Now, if you need to have a protein shake or if you need to have a bite of something, okay, just do that. That's like work your way towards no food. Just do it progressively. Utilize the information and pick and choose what you want to use. The 2 and 10, 3, 2, 1 is regards to liquids. 2 hours before bed, you want to stop drinking any liquids. Again, if you want to sip some water before you go to bed so you're not like thirsty, of course, that's fine. But 2 hours before bed, you want to stop drinking liquids because we don't want to wake up while your body is in the pit being repaired or in the service being repaired to stand up and go to bed. You don't want to interrupt the workers fixing your body. So the best way to stop, urinating before going to bed and interrupting this restorative process that your body's in is by stopping drinking liquids 2 hours before. And then the 1 is regarding light. The way your body functions, and your body has a thing called the internal clock, also known as your circadian rhythm, that's all dictated by light. What's messing us up is that the same light that the sun emits, your devices like your phone and your TV screens emit the same light that is resetting your clock all the time. And this is why 1 hour before bed, you want to reduce your exposure to screens, so shutting it all down, or you want to wear blue light blocking glasses. These are these amber glasses, and what these blue light blocking glasses does is that it stops blue light hitting your eye. And what blue light basically does is that it is what resets the clock. So when blue light is low, the clock is then functioning well, and the hormone melatonin, which is your sleepiness hormone, is produced. When you're getting blue light, melatonin is suppressed. So when you wear the glasses, it allows the sleepiness hormone to be produced. So 1 hour before bed, even 2 hours or 3 hours, you can put on the glasses, but you want to shut down all devices, or at least put on the glasses, so that by 10 p.m., and do this at 9, 1 hour before bed, 10 p.m. you're ready to go to bed and you're sleepy. And like all humans, we're creatures of habit. This will become habitual, and you will see that you'll fall asleep and you'll sleep 7 hours, and this will make this whole process so much easier. And then the final step, and I won't speak too much on this, but it's building muscle mass. I train a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and onwards, and I've seen the more you age, the more important muscle becomes. It's like those people who wish they had savings, they wish they saved when they were in their teens and they had energy. And the same applies with muscle. So train at least 3 times per week. And because you've watched till this part, I am going to give you a training routine to follow. I'll leave the video here. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.